All right, shout out to the fam. Appreciate y'all for being in this one. Much love to the fam and the whole Who Dat Nation. Shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor. Shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor of the show. Much love to the fam. We up in this thing. In this episode, man, we're going to be doing a little breaking down and listening to Mickey Loomis. Mickey recently did an interview. Of course, we did all the draft stuff. Mickey, we thought Mickey would pop up there with the players that were interviewed. He wasn't. He did this interview with John DeSacia, who is a Saint reporter who works for the team, and he had taken his thoughts on some of the moves that the team made. So let's kind of delve into it. Y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, man, as we get into some reaction to hear from Slick Mick Loomis on some of the Saints moves. Here we go.
Podcast. I'm John DeShader, joined by Executive Vice President, General Manager Mickey Loomis, the busiest man in show business right now. What are these days like for you? We're in the early tampering, the legal tampering period, as they call it. What are these days like for you?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of contact with agents, negotiations, a lot of in-house meetings, discussing where we're at. There's a little bit of hurry up and wait element to it, but it's kind of exciting.
That's right. Now, before we get to that, that's the good part. We will rewind.
Let's give some of Mickey Loomis's assistants some credit too, man. Let's give them all some love. How about some love for Kai Hartley? Right? Kai Hartley, Randy Mueller, the former what's the guy was the former general manager for the Atlanta Falcons, Thomas Dimitroff, and others that are part of Mickey Loomis's GM squad that are doing a lot of work too. So we often kind of give Mickey the credit, but there are other guys below, that are there as well working to make these things happen. And I think that's the point, that he has help. So Kai is literally the guy doing the contracts. I told y'all that. You've seen the pictures of him. You can go on their website and see Kai is the one shaking their hands. He's the one doing the contracts. Mickey approves it. So he has a GM team around him. That's not taking nothing from him. That's just giving appropriate credit to all of those involved in the process. Let's just say it like that, right?
Because 20 years ago today, the Saints signed the most significant free agent in franchise history, a guy named Drew Brees.
That's right.
What are your recollections of that?
Oh, I was eating clam chowder.
Sometimes it seems a little surreal.
Yeah.
But look, it was a heavy recruiting.
The young Drew.
Mission. Because of Katrina, and it was a little different then because free agency was a little more recruitment, less about. Now we just do all this. There's not a lot of visitations. There's a lot of discussion on the phone, and it's negotiations as opposed to, recruitment. Then it was about recruiting a player under some difficult circumstances, given Katrina, a new head coach who no one had really heard of at the time. There was 10 jobs available that year, 10 new head coaches. And so there's a lot of stuff going on around the league as well as within our team and certainly within the community, given the effects of Katrina. So, look, we went through that whole process. I think we were really skeptical that we would be able to get Drew to come, particularly when, Miami was the main competition,
right,
and all that they had to offer.
Right.
But it worked out pretty well.
Right. And Mickey, credit to Mickey saying that because often this story gets romanticized that Drew came straight to us. No, that's not accurate. Drew was trying to go to Miami, right? The city was underwater. There was a lot of uncertainty about the Saints team. Sean Payton comes in. We do get the third overall pick in the draft, which turns into Reggie Bush, but we needed a franchise quarterback. And the Saints' options were either Drew Brees or Dante Culpepper. Miami, who was led by Nick Saban at the time, he was the head coach and the general manager, and he was deciding between which quarterback to take because it was an issue about whether or not Drew's shoulder was healed. Remember, he had that shoulder injury at the end of his career with the Chargers, and that kind of was a negative mark on him. Also, Culpepper had an injury as well with his shoulder or his arm or something like that. But Nick Saban chose wisely for us and poorly for the Dolphins.
It's a sales pitch because, to be frank, New Orleans was a shambles then.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, it wasn't the city. It was more about the opportunity to do something bigger than football. Had been down for a while, and being able to turn that around and how impactful that would be.
Will Smith.
That was the sales pitch. And we were really transparent about the task ahead. And Sean, as we all know now, didn't know then, has a great delivery of his message, and he did a great job with Drew and Brittany laying out his vision for them, and man, it all came to fruition.
I guess you can't know that you're going to get a first ballot Hall of Famer out of it, but what were some of the things that you saw? Because at the time, Drew was injured. He had 5 years in San Diego, but he was a guy who, if he was healthy, obviously was an ascending player.
There was indication that Drew was a good player, but he was coming off a serious injury. We had Pete Carmichael on our staff who had been with him in San Diego. So we knew about the type of person that he was. We knew about his ability to overcome adversity, to kind of defy the odds every place he'd been. We knew about the work ethic, but I wouldn't say that we knew how good a player that he was going to become. And he was still in development. Quarterbacks, it takes a while for them to develop. And, we're so impatient in our league with players and with quarterbacks in particular, but, it was an advantage that he had 4 years in San Diego, and it had a lot of quality starts. And so it was just kind of coming into his own at the time that he was injured. And we benefited from the fact that he was injured and the fact that, the Chargers had drafted Phillip Rivers, and it worked out great.
Now, we stay in 06 because even when Drew Brees comes in as a free agent, really the headliner was kind of that rookie class, Reggie Bush, leading that rookie class.
That's right.
What are your remembrances of that? Because, it turns out to be probably the most productive, best draft class in franchise history.
Yeah, well, a couple things. The first thing that happened was we hired Sean Payton, and that was a blip, right? And nobody really heard of Sean Payton. This young, fresh-faced coach that had been at Dallas as an assistant. That was, I think, met with a little bit of skepticism. And then, we signed Drew Brees, and that's met with a little bit of skepticism, the 6-foot quarterback who couldn't lift his arm above his head. And then, we get to the draft, and I think everyone's expecting Reggie to be the first pick of the draft, and we've got the second pick, right? And then so that night, the night before the draft, Sean had some inside information that the Texans were going to take Mario Williams, and made a little side bet with me that we were going to get Reggie Bush.
Oh, and that's so him.
Yeah, that's so him. Inside information. He got me on that one. But the excitement level for us getting Reggie Bush, I don't know that I've seen anything like that. When I was in Seattle, we won the lottery for the supplemental draft and got Brian Bosworth, and I would say that was pretty similar in terms of the excitement. But given the circumstances of Katrina and where the city was, and that was like the first sign of good fortune, right, for the franchise, and it was just huge.
So you get Reggie.
You hitting on, it was like a domino effect early on, which knew the Saints were operating in the proper positive alignment because they get Sean Payton, right, who was being looked at about a couple of teams wanted Coach Payton, right? He takes the Saints job. Drew Brees doesn't get selected by Miami. He comes to the Saints. Then we get Reggie Bush with the pick. Those three things, man, were real big because then Coach Payton really started to build because he literally had to construct the entire Saints team, offense and defense, and then he started getting guys from all over. He got Scott Fajita and Scott Shanley from the Cowboy. Well, Fajita from the Chiefs and Shanley from the Cowboys, and he started to construct his team and put the team together. And man, oh man, it was some interesting times back in those times, man.
A Heisman Trophy winner.
Started.
And then you pick up a guy in second round, I think it was Roman Harper, who turns out to be significant for this franchise. I mean,
that's right.
What were the thoughts
shout out to
in
Roman
that
Harper.
selection?
Yeah, that, Roman, listen, first of all, that draft, 2006, I know ESPN a couple years ago named that as the number one draft class in the 21st century. So a very small percentage of NFL players get to have 10-year careers, right? And we had, I think, 6 or 7 players in that draft that had 10-year careers. One, Rob Ninkovich, who didn't have the bulk
That's
of his career with us. He had
Mickey got a good memory.
Success at other places. One of our, mistakes not keeping Rob.
Yeah, Rob Ninkovich was good
on the Saints, but that was a special draft.
Meet EM Sense, a breakthrough in foot therapy that
Jari, Roman Harper made him. They were immediate starters. Obviously, we talked about Reggie, but Roman Harper came in and was an immediate starter. Came from Alabama. He had a little bit of that swagger and confidence that you get from being an Alabama player. He expected to win, and Reggie expected to win. And they brought that swagger to a franchise that was kind of hoping to win at that time. And Marcus Colston. My memory of Marcus Colston was that first rookie minicamp. He was kind of awful.
Yeah, he was over his head. He admits he was over his head.
Yeah, his back was hurting. He was out of shape, and we're just thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do? Zach Strief was part of that class, 7th round pick, but he took a few years to develop and ended up being a really great player for us, and obviously had a long career.
Yeah, the three later guys who end up with the 10-year careers here, Jari and Zach Strief and Marcus. How significant is it to hit on draft picks that late in the draft for guys to be that productive?
It's just huge. It just is huge because you're not expecting that. You're hoping to get guys that contribute to your team and as backups or special teams players. And so when you get 3 guys like that are not just starters but really quality starters for long periods of time, that's like hitting the lottery.
So again, staying in 2006, because you get all these guys together and now you have the homecoming game. The return game. What were the emotions that went into that? Because we know a lot about the players and how Sean felt, but for you to have assembled this and to now be able to come back home and play in this Superdome after it's been, resuscitated essentially, and the city's been resuscitated, what were the feelings?
The game starts, we were 2-0 at that time. Kind of had a couple of, late wins, comeback wins against Cleveland and Green Bay, I believe. And they were playing against Atlanta, who had done well their first 2 games and ran the ball really well. And so they were a really good team that we were going to have a difficult time against. At least that's what we thought going into the game. And then, when the first thing that happened on 3rd down was there was a fumble down, and the emotion blows the roof off.
Great times. Look at
I think all the emotion of the moment exploded with that play. And obviously.
I think Jim Elmore, who former Saints assistant and then the Falcons head coach, said there's no way the Saints would get. He was almost like it was a setup. There's no way the Saints were going to lose that game.
Yeah.
Was it kind of like that? I mean, even going in.
Yeah, I think going in, I think they were probably the favorites in that game coming into the game. But once the game started and the emotion of the pregame and then the emotion of that play, I think it felt a little inevitable at that point. And look, Sean, Sean brought the team to the Dome the day before. Just to get a look around, and a lot of the guys had never been in the Superdome before. And he talked about the game and talked about how special it was, but that it was only going to be special if we won. So I think the guys understood the gravity of it and rose to the pressure of the moment and had a great performance.
So now we can jump into the present, where the real work is being done. This free agency period so far has been very, very fruitful on paper for the Saints, and probably will be on the field, at least we hope. So right now, running back Travis Etienne, guard David Edwards, punter Ryan Wright, tight end Noah Fant. Guys who are coming in positions of need and yet quality guys that you don't have to reach for. How helpful is it, I guess, to have this now legal tampering period to get a start on things?
Yeah, I think all of us in the league, all we really want is be able to, get in front of the agents and players that are available and just be able to make our pitch. That's what, that's what the purpose of these periods are. And you don't want to, make a pitch after the decision's already been made, right? So it gives us the opportunity to do that, and we've been able to do that. I think. We go into every offseason with this list of things that we want to get accomplished, and you're hoping to get the majority of them accomplished during the free agency period, so that when we get to the draft, we'll be able to take the best available player, maybe a guy at a position that we don't think we need, and yet is just such a good player that we
can't pass on.
we want to improve his strength on our team.
Yeah, and that's what I've been saying, family. That's been the most common practice. The best and most consistent way for success in the NFL with teams is to solve as many problems as you can in free agency, meaning like what the Saints are doing this year, like they obvious holes coming into the free agency period, and the Saints filled a lot of them. Now, we didn't expect, there were many reports saying that the Saints were interested in Travis, but the real interesting point is that the Saints had a bona fide strategy and defined holes on the team that they needed to improve. The left guard position was a position of need. They looked at the running back position as a position of need. Getting a backup tight end for Juwan Johnson was a position of need. Fortifying the defensive tackle backup position with Ridgeway, giving him a 2-year deal. Signing Dylan Reduce back for a 2-year deal to add more veteran depth to the backup situation. There's still a hole at the center position, backup wise. But, and then, of course, the Saints do have options, whether or not they want to do that or they feel competent in the players that they currently have. But getting the players that you want in free agency, like the Saints went after those guys and nailed it, and now have an opportunity simply to go into the draft and do the BPA, best player available strategy, is the best, because it eliminates your need to reach. You have a big board with 100 players on the board, and the scouts get together in the war room prior to them getting there for draft day. They all have these players. They rank these players of importance, who the best player is, and the Saints have that on their board. And then if those players get, taken, they scratch the name off, and whatever player is remaining there, that's the guy they pick. And you heard what Mickey said, whether it fits a need or not. So if he's high on the board, whether he fits a need or not, BPA, that's the strategy. Like you can, and listen, at 8, the Saints are going to have a crack at the second best pass rusher in the draft. They're going to have a crack at probably the second best offensive lineman in the draft. They're going to have a crack at potentially the first or second best wide receiver. They're going to have a crack at the top running back in the draft. They're going to have a crack at the top cornerback in the draft, the top DB, or a guy like Caleb Downs, the best safety in the draft. You're going to have an opportunity. You're going to have a crack at the best tight end. So you're going to have several opportunities at that 8 spot to either get the best player or the second best player that high inside the top 10. So this is the most clear and best strategy, and it works. And that's what they're going to do this year.
And so hopefully that helps us do that.
Can you give us a thumbnail on each guy? Etienne first.
Yeah, explosive running back. He's had, I think 3,000 yard seasons.
I'm sorry about these damn ads too.
It helps that he's from Louisiana.
Yes.
Get to bring a guy home, and that's always a good thing. Great kid. We had really high grades on him coming out of Clemson, and really excited to get him, and I think he's excited to be with the Saints.
And now Edwards.
Yeah, David Edwards. Guard that was played at Wisconsin, and they've been well known for their production of offensive linemen. Was with the Rams, and then Buffalo had Aaron Cromer as a coach of his, so we know he's been well coached. Great kid, leader of the offensive lines that he's been. Really smart player, can communicate well, and he'll fit our room perfectly.
How about Noah Fant? Because he's a guy who's
Noah Fant, a tight end who was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
More of a receiving tight end, but a willing blocker. A guy that we had our eye on him a year ago and made a pitch to get him here, and he chose to go someplace else. And but it's worked out that he's back, and I think will be a good pairing with Juwan.
And your punter,
solid
Ryan
pairing.
Ryan Wright. Yeah, get to bring a Tulane guy in here. He had a great season last year, and we're excited to kind of solidify that position. And we often have to remember that not only is he going to be expected to punt, he's going to be the holder for the kicks, and that's an important job that I think gets overlooked oftentimes, and he's really good at it.
Punt and holder.
2026 also brings us into the second season of head coach Kellen Moore.
Yep.
So what are your assessments of Kellen's first year? I mean, he came into a situation where, he really held this team together. This team held together after a tough start and was able to win 4 out of 5 down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I just been really impressed with Kellen. And I would say that he's met and exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. We hit him with a curveball right away when the situation with Derek Carr not being able to play. That was a big curveball and something unexpected.
It was a good curveball, Mickey.
About it, just okay. What's the solution? What's the next thing? And we pivoted to these young quarterbacks. Drafted Tyler and obviously we played Spencer and excited about those two guys. But his demeanor and calmness under fire has been really impressive. And we started off poorly, had some things not go our way, but we made progress every week, and the players made progress every week. And so I'm excited about the future, excited about him as our head coach.
I know you said in this league, oftentimes quarterbacks don't get a lot of time to develop. So this quarterback that you have, Tyler Shough, people are heaping a lot of praise on him. How do you, tamp it down and keep him level-headed?
Yeah, I think that we just have to look. The praise is deserved, right? He did really well. He's done all the things right. Not all the things right, but he's done a lot of things right. He's got the right mindset and attitude. I think it's up to us to make sure that we give him a chance to develop and we set our expectations correctly. It takes quarterbacks time to develop in our league. It just does, and we want that process to speed up, but there's not really any way to speed up experience. You have to get these games under your belt. You have to go through the adversities that exist in our league, and just kind of, I don't want to say spoon feed, but that's not the right word. But just take the one step at a time. We can't skip any steps in his development, and hopefully we can build a team around him that can make up for the things that he needs to develop.
How much does it help for him to have this dynamic? I know we didn't necessarily maybe appreciate it enough that he's got a head coach, an offensive coordinator, and a quarterbacks coach who all play quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that's huge.
Big.
I do. I think
that is big.
Understanding that just helps. We understand the process that it's going to take for him to improve incrementally. And when you have guys in the room that have been through it, that have been behind center, that understand the things that he's going to be facing, then that's a huge help. And for us, we've got to develop a really good run game. We've got to play good defense and not put it all on his shoulders until he's ready to put it on his shoulders.
Yeah. Huge thing in 26.
Yeah,
have you brushed up on your French? Saints are playing in Paris.
Yeah, we are. I'm excited about that. We're all excited about that. First of all, the connection between New Orleans and France is the history of that is exciting, and Mrs. B is excited about that. She has a lot of great relationships over there, and hopefully we can put on a good performance. Hopefully we can win a game and also enhance the relationship between Paris and France and New Orleans.
Now, you're a guy who doesn't really, you stay behind the scenes. You kind of don't like to be out in front, and yet there's a legacy here that's building for Mickey Loomis, including 200 wins as the general manager here. Do you think about where you fit in the history of this franchise, or is it too soon, too close?
I don't think about it.
Well, I'm great. So I'm
Doug makes me aware of
general manager
of things sometimes, but I don't really spend much time thinking about it. I'm more concerned about right
Nick,
now.
You do.
How do we get back to the playoffs and get that next era of successful Saints football going? And I feel like we're on the right track. And look, there'll be time for that when I'm done.
When you're done,
to look back and reflect, but I don't spend a lot of time. Look, there's people that remind me all the time, hey, you're doing a horrible job, or you're doing a great job, or
I bet
whatever.
you don't listen to those guys.
Everybody
Nick.
has their opinion about that, and I think that's for other people to determine.
So does it regenerate for you every season? How excited are you to look into 26 going into the season?
Yeah, look, I'm always a glass half full guy, so I always see a path to success, and it doesn't always come to fruition, but I always feel like, there's a path to success. And so I feel that way right now. I'm excited about our coaching staff. I'm excited about the roster. I'm excited about some of these young players that in some cases we were forced to play. In other cases, we expected to play, and their development and their opportunity to
All these damn ads. I apologize, fam, for these ads, man. It's crazy work.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this season.
Yeah. Now, before we wrap it, obviously pro days are coming up for several of these universities. How important are pro days for these athletes?
It kind of depends on the team, how much stock they put into, some of the things that we see. I think it's just information for us, right? And it's bits of information that we can gather that help us in our final decision process. It doesn't supersede any of the information that we've gotten previously through our evaluations and our interviews, but it's additional information, and it just helps us with the decisions. We're going to have 30 guys come and visit, and we're going to, sit down and talk with them. It doesn't supersede what they've done on tape, but it enhances, in most cases, it enhances what we've seen on tape and confirms, some of the opinions that we have. So I'm a believer in the pro days. We send out our coaches, we send out all of our scouts. We're going to have a large contingent at LSU, like we always do, and we'll have a large contingent at Tulane's pro day because they're the local teams, but it's going to be part of our decision process, absolutely.
Okay, now this is generic. This is not specificity. This is just for my general. Ohio State guys, why are they so prepared for the NFL?
Well, yeah. I first of all, they do a great job of evaluating talent because their players are really talented, right? And then they do a great job coaching them. A lot of schools do that. I think it's coincidence that we've had so many Ohio State guys here over the years.
Not coincidence.
But they've had a lot
guys.
of Ohio State guys have been drafted in our league. So a lot of teams can say they've had a large contingent of Buckeyes, just like a lot of teams can say they've had a large contingent of Alabama players and LSU players and
Philly could say Alabama.
And some of the other schools as well.
So that's Executive Vice President Mickey Loomis. I'm John DeShazier here.
All right, shout out to John DeShazier and the Saints media. They picked Mickey Loomis's brain on some stuff and did some positive interviewing right there. So shout out to those guys. And of course, like I said, the Ohio State thing, Ohio State, they bring some of the best players in the nation, and that's the thing. And they've assembled a great degree of very talented players. And the Saints, that was a Sean Payton thing. Sean Payton loves the Ohio State guys because those guys are ready for the big time. And you can see it across the NFL. And then, it depends. Like you have Philadelphia. They like the Alabama guys. When Nick Saban was running the team, they were able to do that as well. So it's very interesting, man. It just depends on who you prefer. Now, in terms of LSU and Tulane, they have produced some very good players as of recently, not on the line of Ohio State of Alabama, but LSU produces the best wide receivers in the nation, in the country, in the pros, Chase, Jefferson, so on and so forth. The brother down in Jacksonville. So we produce quite a few talented wide receivers as well. And I think things will improve with Lane Kiffin there. And it'll be interesting to see the Saints under Kellen Moore develop a relationship with Lane Kiffin's LSU team, being that they're right up the street, where they could be able to then kind of show off the talent, because LSU will have a lot of talented people going into the draft after the 2026 season is over with. So, that's something to pay attention to. But the reality is those scouts go far and in between to find talent. And the Saints have done a very solid job of finding good players and now having the staff to be able to incorporate those players into a successful system where things will work properly. So, this is a very positive thing, to say the least. But yeah, this was a good interview. Mickey Loomis giving a little game right here about what's with some of the players that the Saints picked up. But they're doing a wonderful job, to be honest with you. Going forward, $20+ million in the cap for the Saints going on right now. Plus, you look at the fact that the Saints have filled several of their biggest needs. And then, of course, now their still openings are players they can bring in. Cam Jordan's re-signing. Is that something the Saints looking at, or replacing them, or not replacing them, but or bringing somebody in, whether it's Bosa or whether it's a vet or a free agency guy or a draft guy? We'll see. The Saints were able to get 2 picks from Seattle to add to what they got, plus the compensatory pick for losing Paulson to Debo. That gives them 8 picks overall, 5 in the first 4 rounds, which the Saints could possibly do better than they did last year in terms of drafting. So this is going to be fun to see how it is with the Saints filling a lot of their needs first through free agency and now doing the BPA approach, as you see Mickey Loomis kind of fortified and talked about that stratagem. And I like that strategy because what it does do, it prevents reaching. Reaching gets you in trouble. The Saints don't have to reach when they solve their needs or bring in the necessary players in free agency, and then when they go to the draft, they can go to players they're very comfortable with. And sometimes the players that they're comfortable with are players that players that they might select might not be from a position of need, is what Mickey Loomis is saying. And he said that before, and you probably might see that in this draft depending on how things line up, which means that if it's a great, and you can kind of see through it, that if Jeremiah Love is on the board and he's high on their board, guess who the Saints going to draft? If it's Caleb Downs up there, guess who they're going to pick up? But me personally, I think Love is going to go higher than people think he will. I think the Commanders are a pick ahead of us. I think the Commanders might actually be the section below and let us know. Shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor of the show. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, the share and notification buttons as well. Big Q representing the mighty Who Dat Nation, man. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one. Much love, peace, and who that to you.
Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints? Who that? Who that?
Whether you're catching up on Saints news at Jackson Square, checking Pelicans scores in the Garden District, or staying updated on LSU while grabbing coffee in the French Quarter, there's one place that keeps you connected to everything that matters in our city. From Bourbon Street to the Superdome, from Preservation Hall to the Riverfront, New Orleanians are staying in the know with the WhoDatDaily.com. Your daily source for Saints, Pelicans, LSU, and all the sports, music, and culture that makes our city special. At work downtown, at a game in the Dome, or just relaxing by the Mississippi, wherever life takes you in the Big Easy, you can stay connected. Because when you're from New Orleans, you don't just live here. You stay in the NO. That's stay in the know. Visit the WhoDatDaily.com and never miss what matters most to Who Dat Nation. Stay in the NO.
Welcome to the Pro Shop, where we create authentic NOLA-inspired clothing for men, women, and children. From Saints jerseys to Pelicans gear, everything's crafted right here in New Orleans. Whether you're shopping the Pro Shop, the Pel Shop, or the Pro Shop Kids, we've got your whole family covered with genuine merchandise that represents our city's spirit. Check for links in the description section below or in the chat.